Prince Harry wants us to feel sorry for him yet again. The latest victim narrative of Prince Harry is that we must feel sorry for him because his phone was hacked over 15 years ago. And now he has a new documentary about it where he is going to complain about this phone hacking scandal that apparently only happened to him 9 times, in addition to maybe sometimes them paying for the phone records of Chelsea Davy, his girlfriend, when he was younger. He is, of course, obsessed over this case, and now he is bringing it to ITV in the form of a documentary where others are speaking out about the phone hacking scandal. Of course, the big problem here, though, is that this phone hacking scandal ended in 2011. There is even no evidence at this point that there is active phone hacking anywhere. Why? Because phones are safer, phones are more secure, and oftentimes now celebrities just give out the information for free. So why do you even need to hack the phones? And so this is a case of Harry once again claiming the media is the problem for everything essentially in his life. I think this is what he's going to argue in this documentary, and it's completely and utterly unnecessary. Pretty much everyone attached to this case has settled. They've settled because they probably won't make enough to make it worthwhile to continue this case. And how are you going to change something that's no longer happening? That doesn't even make any sense. Why are you going through this lawsuit, which Harry claims he's doing because he wants to obviously change the British media landscape? And he thinks if he wins this, he will do it. But the problem is, none of this is still happening. So he's not going to change anything because the newspapers are still going to do what they're going to do. In fact, Harry just recently was revealed to have perhaps deleted some messages that he should have kept for this case. And so who is really at fault here? Well, we don't really know the specifics yet. However, Prince Harry is not doing any of this to change the British media. He's not doing this to make anybody's life better except himself. And this case, again, has nothing really to do with Chelsea Davy, the relationships he had at the time, or anything about that. At the end of the day, this is all really about his mother and Meghan Markle. That is why he's suing. That's what he's hoping to change. So we are going to look at some of the latest little bits of this today because this is just so incredibly ridiculous and also incredibly stupid. Because what's the one thing you don't want to do before your criminal case is settled? Why, it's give a media interview. That just never seems to go well. So we are going to explore all this. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. I provide you all compelling royal commentary about the latest news and sometimes the drama going on behind the scenes. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, I would absolutely love to have you back. And I also wanted to give a shout out again to my lovely Anna Lucia Diamonds. Oh my gosh, this eternity ring is just my absolute favorite thing. It is amazing. I'm also wearing the cross necklace I got, which I'm so excited about because I've wanted one like this for so long. That's just classic diamond cross. And then I have my earrings as well that I wear all the time. I know I need to switch out my earrings more, but I really do wear these every day, all the time, because I love just having the classic stud available. So I just make sure anytime I need anything, I have these in. And so I don't need to change my earrings ever. It is awesome. I mean, I still do change them from time to time, but I really do wear these pretty much every day because they go with every outfit. Diamonds go with every outfit, guys. They truly, truly do. Now, these aren't exactly available, but I will maybe link some up above that are a bit similar because, again, I just don't think you can go wrong with a classic stud. And I was so happy they had these. This is more of sort of like a cluster of little diamonds, but it really gives that solitaire effect, which I absolutely love. So if you guys are interested, I will put a link up above. And if you use code ROYAL20, you shall save 20%. And who is not saving anything right now? Definitely not the UK media, definitely not his relationships, his family, anything like that, is of course Prince Harry. Yes. So he is doing this documentary, like we said, but something that ended years and years ago now. So Prince Harry, Hugh Grant stuff for ITV documentary on phone hacking scandal, tabloids on trial. And one of the things I got from this here is Harry's close-up here. It reminds me so much of Spare. And that's just the first big thing going forwards here is Harry doing this is just kind of sort of a dumb idea. And the reason is that none of his interviews have ever aged well for him. They never have. All his interviews regarding Spare were like completely torn apart. And Spare itself was a disaster for him. Now, did he make money? Yeah, he did, but at the expense of his reputation, at the expense of his public reputation. He became a source of mockery, and that really hasn't ended. And honestly, as well, guys, I read through some of this from time to time because I got this because I had to listen to the Gabor Mate conversation with Harry, which golly, that was nails on a chalkboard bad. But this is like written like a text message chain and some of it like such short sentences. And I know Harry quote unquote ghost wrote this or whatever, but I was like, Meg smiled. What's the occasion? No occasion. I scooped up Guy, carried him outside into the walled garden, put him on down on a blanket, and I'd spread on the grass. Like, I kind of hate this kind of writing. So every time I look at this, I'm like, ugh, right? Better. But this has not done well for Harry. You cannot tell me by any stretch of the imagination that this has aged well for him. The purpose of every single interview Harry and Meghan have done, I think, post Mexit, including Netflix and everything, is to try to convince people that they are in the right and the royal family, of course, is in the wrong and treated them poorly. But that just doesn't ever come across because Harry's either misleading things like in his ITV interview with Tom Bradby way back in the day when Spare came out. He said, "Oh, well, we didn't call my family racist. Ugh, that was the British media's narrative." I was like, Harry, that was like all over the American media, bud. Like all over the American media. And you had 2 years to correct that narrative, which you did not. So I think the burden's on you there because the whole thing with Harry and Meghan is that they've refused to take responsibility for anything, for anything related to what has happened with the royal family, all the chaos with Megxit and everything. It is all everyone else's faults. It's never Harry and Meghan's fault. Never, ever, ever for Harry and Meghan do they ever take any responsibility for any other actions. It is really in many ways somewhat disappointing too because Harry and Meghan like they've done things wrong. Like a lot of things wrong and they should take responsibility for that, but they refuse to do that and this interview is going to be another instance of it because Harry is going to blame everything on the media. We've known this. We've seen this time and time again. He's blamed the media for everything. So let's see what this says. Harry Hugh Grant will be featured in an ITV documentary focusing on the legal battles involved in the phone hacking scandal titled Tabloids on Trial. Now, again, what I find I have an issue with here is that yes, the phone hacking did happen, but pretty much ended in 2011. That's when the news group newspapers, or at least News of the World, cratered and was shut down. So nobody else is really doing that. Obviously, with the advent of social media, it hasn't even been really necessary anymore. So I'm sure, of course, it was very damaging at the time, but also it's not happening anymore. So Harry, I feel like he's determined to do this because he says he wants to save British media. I think he said that in some sort of statement that he is here. He's the sole person who can stop misinformation basically and save the British media establishment, which he is not. Him and Meghan, in fact, I was working on something for the Crown Report about Harry and Meghan, how they are the most purveyors of misinformation that has totally led the royal watching world to chaos these last several years is all due to Harry and Meghan. And so I just don't feel like Harry is the person really to fix this. And I have an issue as well with the fact that this is no longer happening. So how are you going to fix something that isn't happening anymore and that everyone agrees was bad? This is not something where people are like, yeah, it was okay. They had to do it. So we understand. No. Everybody knows this was bad. The whole media establishment knows that it's bad. And the tabloid culture has changed quite a bit since this happened. And so, really, in a lot of ways, this doesn't make sense. And most people attached to this trial have settled. Hugh Grant has settled. And he said it's because even if he wins, his winnings will probably not exceed what he paid for in lawyers' fees. And if that happens, then technically the plaintiff, which in this case would be Harry, in that case was Hugh Grant, would be responsible for everyone's legal bills. Everyone. So that includes the people he's suing. So he might win and still have to pay their legal bills. Isn't that crazy? That's absolutely crazy. And I think at this point, Harry's already on the hook for 2/3 of their bill. I remember reading a story about that. I thought it was newer, but it was older. But I believe they said he was on the hook for 2/3 of their bill already. And at this point, he's going to be on the hook for 100%. And so he might win a little like moral victory, you could say. But what's going to change? Nothing. The Duke of Sussex alleges he was targeted by journalists and private investigators working for the news group newspapers titles The Sun and now defunct News of the World, which closed in 2011. In May, the prince's lawyers were told by a London judge that he cannot expand the privacy lawsuit against to include allegations against media mogul Rupert Murdoch and presenter Piers Morgan. And I think that's fine. Again, I don't know how much they know. I would highly imagine that Rupert Murdoch had no idea, because when you're up that high, you really don't know what the peons are doing. And Piers Morgan might not really have known that either. I don't know for sure. But my point is that the media's always been kind of a scuzzy business. And that's why I had like issues with it. I should have done more media related stuff in college, but I didn't think about it because I didn't really like the media, because I enjoyed consuming media, but I also knew that media had bents, media had bias, and media was not always the best, and that sometimes media is kind of scuzzy in a way. So for example, one of the things, I was watching this documentary and I was just like, "Oh my gosh." So this was about the Richard Ramirez. Was he the Hillside Strangler? I can't remember which moniker he had. Anyways, there was a murder spree going on in California, and he was, of course, responsible for it. And the news media was sort of all over it. And then at some point, somebody got wind within the media that there was a particular shoe the police officers were looking for. And if they made that particular shoe public, wouldn't you know it? Maybe the serial killer might change it. It might make it more difficult for them to stop him. But the news media really wanted to go with the story. And I think they did, because, oh, we have this piece of information. But I'm like, but morally, you're compromising the case. That's not good for anyone. So why are you doing that? Because if he changes shoes, then the thing that made him like traceable is totally gone. So I can't remember quite how it worked out, but I remember it's like, that's the reason why I don't really care for the media overall. And even though I'm in the media, which is ironic, I hold myself to my own standards, which I find to be pretty high. I can be wrong from time to time, but I feel like my standards, I try to keep them pretty high. And so it says in 2011, obviously the story broke that Britain's biggest stars and figures were elected victims of a scandal of the media's top newspapers tapping landlines and fitting properties with listening devices in the name of journalism. So obviously listening devices could still be an issue, but who has landlines anymore, guys? So how is Harry going to fix something if nobody has landlines anymore? It says, but in December, Judge Timothy Farquhar ruled in Prince Harry's favor against Mirror Group newspapers in a 386-page decision handed down from the High Court. He said that phone hacking, which for the prince dated back to 2003 in his own mind, was widespread and habitual at the Daily Mirror. And then also Grant, ex-Sox player Paul Gascoigne, and Charlotte Church also feature in the documentary. ITV News' Rebecca Berry will sit down for Harry for this interview, who has broken from royal tradition with immense legal action for his first major interview since the legal action commenced, as the documentary hears about his mission to continue his fight to expose the illegal tactics of Britain's tabloid press and explore what those in charge of Fleet Street really knew as the scandal unfolded. But there's a lot of this is sort of kind of a dumb idea, to be quite honest. And the reason is that Harry's case is not settled. You should never ever do press until your case is settled. Now, I don't know exactly how British case law works, but I would imagine that the newspapers may be able to say, Prince Harry did this interview making these salacious allegations. We want to now fight over this. Because here's the thing that happens when you introduce legal action into whatever you're doing, is that lawyers love to poke holes in anything. I mean, it's even something I do, like if I'm a historian and I'm reading through, let's say, a book like Harry's Spare, I can go through and I can just decimate some of his arguments because he put it down on paper and it's just easy to dissect, because that's what you sort of kind of do. So I just don't think this is going to end up in the way that Harry wants. In fact, I think the lawyers are going to go, hey, look what Harry opened up. Isn't this awesome? And the true victim of the phone hacking scandal really was the Princess of Wales, Harry's sister-in-law, who was hacked 155 times. Why? Because they could get information from William over her. And so her phone was hacked 155 times, William's 35 times, and Harry's on 9 occasions. And this was interesting that they talked about, because Catherine was becoming more and more of a figure in the royal circle. And so it said, this was Goodman, one of the, I think the editors or something. He said she was a figure of increasing importance around the royal family. There were discussions about her and Prince William marrying, moving in, settling down. She started to receive a semi-royal status and things were moving on. So she became an important figure, and that's why they were looking at her as the most important person you could say to hack in some ways, is because she was the one moving and shaking. She was the one just taking things to the next level. And so they were like, well, we need to focus on her. That's where the focus should be. And when it comes to Chelsea, there really wasn't much phone hacking. She did say that she found the whole situation very, very overwhelming. It was so full on crazy and scary and uncomfortable. I found it very difficult when it was bad. I couldn't cope. I was trying to be a normal kid and it was horrible. And she started dating Harry, I think, when she was 17 or 18. So they were really young together. And so the press attention, I'm sure, for her was just completely and utterly overwhelming. And Harry was away, and Harry, I don't think, was the best partner in some ways. And so Harry, of course, complains about how everything went. He says, I remember that whenever Chelsea and I went on a trip to Baruto, a small island off the coast of Mozambique, to try and get away from all the madness and enjoy some peace and quiet, journalists and photographers from the MGN and other tabloids would literally turn up and book into the hotel before we got there. I now believe that they had blagged our flight details and hotel bookings and or intercepted our voicemails. And so I understand that was probably incredibly frustrating for Harry, but he seems to think if he can fix all this, that somehow maybe his relationship with Chelsea will get better. So if we go over here, I think we can see that Mr. Bear paid £570 on March 9th, 2005 for phone record checks, and on February 15th, 2005, £750 for Harry's call to Chelsea exclusive and such a brazenly unlawful activities authorized by Sun managing editors Graham Dunman and Chris Roycroft Davis, respectively. So Chelsea, obviously, they were looking for her phone records. That's what they were looking for. And that's what they did get. So they were definitely just trying to get as much information as they could. But the big question now is, why this case? And will this case do what I think Harry wants it to do? Because again, he is determined to change the British media landscape. And at the end of the day, though, this has nothing to do with changing things for other people. This has nothing to do with Hugh Grant or Charlotte Church or making their experiences any better, or even his brother or his sister in law's experience any better. This is all at the end of the day really about Meghan Markle. Harry is using any tactic in the book he can to steamroll the media about his beliefs regarding their alleged treatment of Meghan Markle. Because he even says in the book Spare, and I was looking at this up again for something else. He talks about how I felt wild with rage and guilt. I infected Meghan and her mother with my contagion, otherwise known as my life, and I'd promised her that I'd keep her safe and I'd dropped her into the middle of this danger. So he also said, sue them. I kept telling the lawyer over and over. He explained over and over that suing the papers is what he wanted. And his lawyer tried to explain to him that that's exactly what the papers wanted so that they can confirm the relationship. And the lawyers and Kensington Palace kept telling him, you're just going to feed the beast. Silence is the best option. But he said silence wasn't an option. Of all the options, silence was the least desirable, the least defensible. We couldn't just let the press continue to do this to Meg. And so you feel there Harry's rage. This is all about Harry's rage and trying to fix Meghan Markle's dissatisfaction with the media. That's all this is about. This has nothing to do with what happened to him or even trying to amend what happened to Chelsea Davy. She's not even a part of this trial. And I think she was a greater target of the media than Harry was. He doesn't care about her. He cares about pleasing Meghan. He cares about trying to fix things with Meghan because Meghan is not happy with how the media treated her. And I think she has an argument in some small instances, but by and large, she just wanted them to go along with whatever she said and not question her at all. Like she didn't want anybody to question anything about Meghan Markle, but they did. And that's her real issue with it. Is not that they said wrong things, is that she didn't like the narrative that they spun, that they didn't follow her closely, carefully crafted, curated image that she wanted to portray to the public. And so instead, she's gets Harry all huffed up about how he needs to protect her. I mean, there was even this wild story in here. And guys, again, haven't actually read the book yet. Don't really want to. But she apparently went to the market, where only we only got one or two pictures of her going to the market. And she came back. Let's see if I can find it here. 2 hours later, when I got home, I found her inconsolable, sobbing, shaking. What is it? What's happened? She could barely get the story out. She dressed just as I advised, and she'd run happily, anonymously, up and down the supermarket aisles. But as she rode the escalator, a man approached her. Excuse me, do you know where the exit is? And then he goes on this case about how people were chasing her, following her, like taking pictures of her, getting turkey at the deli counter, and all these sorts of things, which we never got any evidence of Harry. We never got any evidence of this. So to me, this story just I'm sorry, just rings a bit false because we got 2 pictures of her. And one time she did like walk like right by the Daily Mail offices. And apparently there was a parade and she couldn't get into the Kensington Palace at the right exit. And so she had to go in the front exit, which all of this makes 0 sense. And the plot thickens even further because as I was pulling the pictures for this video, because I remember these 2 pictures so clearly, what I didn't realize, because I had this thought because Kensington Palace obviously has brick, and the entrance that she's seemingly to go in looks very official and very royal. No, 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 guys. She is just walking into the park. This is the park entrance. Anybody in the world can walk right there. Anyone in the world. So I just find this whole story, especially looking at these pictures now, ever more absolutely implausible. The story makes absolutely 0 sense. It makes 0 sense. So, yes, I think it was personal belief is that it was a totally manipulated ploy by Meghan Markle to get Prince Harry to do her bidding. But Meghan was not happy. And Meghan spun in this, oh, woe is me, Harry, the media, the press, the attention. Oh my gosh, I can't deal. I can't. And so he feels this need to protect her. And so he has this case that he could do. So he's like, you know what? We're going to do this case. We're going to fix everything. But the reality is, this case is going to fix absolutely nothing. It's going to fix literally nothing. Nothing is going to change because the media and how they're treating Harry and Meghan right now has nothing to do with phone hacking. It has nothing to do with landline tapping or putting in listening devices or anything like that. It's their behavior that's the issue. It's their behavior, their constant efforts to undermine the monarchy, their just ridiculous and childish attempts to one up them. Catherine comes out one day, oh, Meghan's friend Nacho has to show another jam picture the same day because Meghan has this just relentless, ridiculous need to compete. And people just are making fun of that. And Harry and Meghan just can't seem to deal with that. And so he's going after them because if he can fix that, Meghan will be happy. But I've said this time and time again, Meghan will never be happy. She will never, ever be satisfied. Even if the press is the most glowing thing ever, something else will come up and she's not happy again. So Harry is fighting a losing battle constantly because even though his wife says, if you do this for me, Harry, I will be happy. The truth is she will never be happy. And the press on them won't change until their behavior really changes. And this just latest instance shows that Harry's behavior is not changing. He's doubling down on stupid. He's just continuing to do this. And again, this interview could open up things for his lawyers. It could open up things that he doesn't want to in terms of his public image. Like his public image is already in the toilet. And he's continuing to go about the same strategy, giving us the same soulful, sad, puppy-eyed dog look because we need to feel sorry for him because, he's a prince and his life hasn't been as perfect as he's wanted it to be. And the other thing, and the reason I think Harry is doing this is to somehow try to resurrect his mother in a way. Prince Harry seems to be on this desperate campaign to try and just, I guess, fix the media narrative surrounding Diana. I was even going through because I was looking for social media posts regarding sort of misinformation regarding the royals. Probably need to do a deeper dive into the cesspool of Twitter. But one of the posts I saw talked about how William was trying to tell everybody his mother was paranoid or crazy or whatever. And Harry's a good son. And that's just not true because I think William is actually the much better son because he is not dragging his mother's memory up every 10 seconds. In fact, I think he mourns her deeply, but in private. And he's also somebody who, as an adult, understands his mother's attributes and faults. Because I think that the maturity of, you could say, a child coming of age or becoming an adult or whatever is seeing your parents not only as your parents but as human beings too, because your parent can't be your idol anymore. Your parent can't be that perfect flawless person. You see the flaws underneath, and I think that's what William sees. I think William sees his true mother, and in that way William understands her so much better because Harry is worshiping an idol that doesn't exist. It's an evaporation, it's a memory, it's a media concoction that he's worshiping and trying to seemingly resurrect, trying to fix what happened with his mother. But the truth is, regardless of what happens with this case, his mother won't come back to life. And the truth as well is that it won't change Harry's relationship with his mother either. It won't change Harry's relationship with Meghan. What Harry truly needs to do is just let some things go, because I think he puts every bad thing that's happened in his life on the media. And yes, the media contributed, but guess what? The media was terrible to Catherine. You could even prove that they stalked her more. In fact, the only time we ever heard her voice, and I'll try to see if I think I made this video one of my favorites so I could reference it, but the only time we ever heard her voice was when the paparazzi were stalking her. That was the first time until her engagement interview that the British people had ever heard her voice. And she was relentlessly stalked, harassed, publicly mocked with Wadey Katie constantly. And yet, she has survived and thrived, while Harry and Meghan are floundering. And it goes to show that I think at the end of the day, the people who truly got through this well are Catherine and William, in part because they got on with life. Catherine doesn't talk all the time. I mean, I don't think we've ever even heard her reference Wadey Katie. I'm sure it hurt her feelings deeply. Does she ever reference it? No, because she's triumphed over it. Harry's not going to triumph over anything. All he's going to do is regurgitate the past endlessly until people become bored with the old man on the counter going through his like 10th pint, complaining about the same thing for the 12,000th time. This is not going to fix anything. But Harry is using the legal system to try and fix his personal problems. And nothing is going to get fixed. Nothing is going to get better. Like, the only thing that Harry can do, that Harry can control, because he can't control the judge, he can't control his lawyers, although I'm sure they're making a pretty penny off him, because at the end of the day, they're still going to get paid. Either way, they get paid. Harry is just always going to lose. So Harry's best route is to just live and let live. Just take the quick settlement and move on. But he just can't seem to do that because he wants to fix the problems in his life by utilizing the legal system. And this is just not going to work. It's just not going to work. He's still going to have the same problems. He's still not going to have a relationship with his family. His wife is still going to be difficult. His mother is still going to have passed on. There's nothing he can do to fix these things. All he can do is recognize how utilizing the legal system at the end of the day, that the only people winning are his lawyers, no one else. Because at the end of the day, despite whatever happens, they still get paid. They still get paid either way. So guys, let me know what you think of this latest sob woes me attempt by Prince Harry. I'd love to get your thoughts because this will be interesting to dissect. So guys, thank you so much again for watching. I appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great day and I shall see you soon. Bye.